Check, check, check. Awesome. Sounds like we're ready to go here.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Ev, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Sound good on your end?
Yep, it sounds good. Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, now we're just waiting here. It's 5 till, I figure about 12:58 we'll jump in unless he shows up early or something.
That'll work. Oh, did you send him the invite?
I sent him an invite. I sent him a text. I sent him the whole shooting match, and he did respond and said he'd be there. So, here we go. We'll see. This is heady stuff we got going on here. But that's just what I think. I just think, do a little, like we talked there, do a little bio background, where you got started and all that kind of thing. And then, we can talk a little bit about the upcoming season. And
that'll work.
And his missile bait company. Yeah, this is some big stuff here.
It's big time.
Yeah,
and we're big timers now. Call us.
Oh yeah,
call us Luke Duncan Low Budget Live now.
Oh my gosh, yeah, this is big stuff, man. It's it's big stuff to me. I'm just glad now, at least with the audio side of things, working. I'm pretty tickled with that. So we got that part of it figured out. Now, if everybody just shows up, we'll be in business.
Yeah, it sounds a whole lot better on mine than it did last.
Yeah, it did.
I'm guessing that's just with the big mic.
I replayed it last night and had Jen listen to it and everything too, and it sounded really good. Both of us, both audio feeds sounded really good. So I'm pretty tickled.
I'm gonna run back over to the store real quick and grab my water to sip on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's 12:58 now, so
I'll let you know when I get over there and get situated, and we'll go ahead and roll through it.
That'll work. All right. When it hits 12:59, I'll jump in here.
Okay.
Yeah, this is who knows, man? Who knows? I'm just glad that I'm just really relieved that all this technical stuff is is working the way it's supposed to. All right,
That's
Ev,
for
it's
sure.
12:59.
Roll it.
Let's see here. It's fine. All right, folks. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Get Outdoors with Hook Outdoors. This is Dan Hook and Evan Barker. It is December the 28th here. Hope everyone had a good holiday, had a good Christmas, and is looking forward to the new year. Today's a big day for us. We have Elite Series angler John Cruz scheduled for an interview here shortly, and we are hoping he has time to join us. So we're just going to do a little talking here about some of the upcoming things that we're planning on here for the show and here at the store and so forth. In the meantime, while we're waiting on him to join us, Evan, don't you have a tournament coming up here after the first of the year?
Yeah, I've got a tournament coming up on Laurel River Lake. It's the fourth stop of the SAF Eastern Division High School Series tournament that I'm fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's starting out January 9th, first tournament of the year. It sets up a lot like Cumberland and all the other Highland reservoirs, Dale Hollow, all them lakes that are around this area, deep water, clear water. A lot of smallmouth, but a lot of big spots live in Laurel River Lake as well. So big spots, they kind of play more of a role on Laurel rather than they do on Cumberland and Dale. But it's gonna be a fun tournament. Laurel's known as almost kind of a trophy lake. It's a smaller lake. It's smaller than Cave Run. It's only I think around 6,500 acres. So it's a little bit smaller than Cave Run. So you got a small playing field. But it's a lake I've been on before a few times, and it's a big bass factory. You've got the same limitations on smallmouth, except the only difference is you can only have two in your live well at a time on Laurel. So if I go down there and I get on a bank and I start busting smallmouth, I can only keep two over 18 inches. So after you get that second 18-inch smallmouth box, you kind of have to bleed over and go to largemouth or spots or something like that, fill in the limit. So, but it's a good big bass lake, and I'm definitely looking forward to getting down there.
Hang on here, Evan. I've got to resend this email to him.
All righty.
It says, MISS over here. All right. So I just resent the email. He said he didn't get the email, so I just resent it. So we'll just have to see here. So hopefully he'll join up here. Yeah, I can edit all this out.
Yeah.
See, this is what I was kind of worried about. So,
I was thinking about doing some fill-in stuff, but I was like, he'll probably edit all that out. So
yeah. So we'll see here. So hopefully, if he's got the whole Podbean app downloaded, we can just go with it. I'm hoping anyway, and he may already have it. I don't know. A lot of people do if they do much of the. Okay, he's got it. He said.
He's got it.
Yeah. So hopefully he'll show up here. He said he's got the email. So. Yeah, so folks, this is big stuff for us here. We're getting ready to talk to John Cruz today on Get Outdoors with Hook Outdoors. So he is coming online any moment now, folks. So Well, hopefully for your tournament there in Lake Cumberland, you'll have pretty good weather. At least the long range weather seems like it looks pretty good anyway.
It
You
seems
know.
like with the temperatures they're given, the water temperature it should be right, as deep as Laurel is, but it's also a lot smaller. So I'm expecting the water temperature should be lower on Laurel than it has been on Cumberland.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see it around that 45, for somewhere between 45 and 50, and I think it'll be there. That's kind of the on them lakes. That's kind of the magic number to get them smallmouth eating. So
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been seeing several pictures of some big bags coming out of there and some
Mhm.
really really good smallmouth coming out of there. So I'm pretty pumped up for it.
I wonder how that local deal they do on Cumberland. I wonder how those guys are doing so far this year.
What's that?
The local deal that they do on Cumberland. You know what they call that? The Southeast.
Oh, the South Centrals.
Yeah, the South Central.
They just had their classic. Weekend before last, they had their classic, and it took. Let me think. Probably, I think it took like right at 34 pounds in 2 days to win. So
Yeah.
about 16, 17 pounds, and
Right.
for both days. I know the boys that was leading on day one, they got second. They busted a big bag on the first day. They had like 17 and a half, almost
Mm-hmm.
18. And then the second day, I think they followed up. They had like 13 or 14.
Right.
But the cats that won, they was in second after day one. They had
Mm-hmm.
they had like, I think they had like right at 16 or 17 both days. So
Really.
they dropped some. Most of them smallmouth too. There's a few big largemouth, but pretty much all
Yeah.
of it was big smallmouths. And it's hard to find, especially right now. 5 keeper smallmouth in a day down there, 5 18 inchers.
Oh
So
yeah.
them boys was on them. Them boys was on them.
I think that I just think that they do well here if they had smallmouth in this lake. I think it'd promote more year-round fishing. A lot of these guys, like look at the guys that we've talked to. Other than fishing some tournaments, they come cold weather, if they go fishing anywhere, they go to Lake Cumberland.
Yeah, they go to
Yeah.
Cumberland or Dale Hollow's killing it right now. Dale Hollow's kicking them out. Big old largemouth and smallmouth. So that's good. If I didn't have that tournament on Laurel here in a couple of weeks, I'd be heading down to Dale to catch some fish.
Hang on here, I got to text him back.
Okay.
Oh man. Shoot. He says, "How do I get to the interview?" He said the link just took him to the homepage of the app.
That's what it's done to me a few times. Tell him to go. Tell him to go back to the email and try it again.
Mm.
Go back. Tell him to go back to the same email and try it again.
So basically, you said if you go back to the email link and just click the link again.
Yeah, that's what I've had to do a few times. I'm gonna take my earbuds out for a second, take the sweatshirt off.
Okay.
Alrighty, I'm back.
Yeah.
Somebody's joined.
Let's see, there's somebody.
He probably hasn't made a username or anything yet, so it's probably just giving him a random
somebody
name.
Has entered the live studio. Hello, is there somebody else on here? PBG.
If you can hear me, hit one of the chairs up there that says "call in," and that should get you into the call.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You hear us, but we don't have any audio from your end. Oh, okay. Here we go. Hello, have we got you there now?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I've got you. Sorry about all the technical difficulties, sir.
You do?
Yeah. We've got you. We sound okay on your end? Dang it. Hello. Hello.
Oh, I can't hear.
Now he can't hear either. Oh, dang it. All right. Yeah, how about now? Are you there now? Keeps going in and out. Yeah, we can hear. We can hear you. Yeah, we've got you now. Are we good? Hey, I'm sorry about all this trouble.
Yeah, I got you now.
Hey, I'm sorry about all this trouble. Yeah. We're not. We spend too much time fishing. We're not the most technically literate bunch around here. We spend too much time on the water, I think.
I hear you, but somehow we figured it out. It's all good.
Yeah, good deal. All right, well, we'll get this started here. Ev, are you on board?
Yep, I got you.
All right. First off, Mr. Cruz, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I'm Dan Hook. I own Hook Outdoors here on Cave Run Lake. And the other individual involved in this works for me here. His name is Evan Barker. He's a high school senior. He's a up-and-coming young angler and actually is basing on furthering his education on what school he's going to go to fish at. So he's pretty knowledgeable about all things in relation to bass fishing. And, without delaying it any further, folks, we're talking to John Cruz today. He is a Elite Series pro angler, has fished in multiple classics, and owns the Missile Bait Company. And I guess my first question for you, Mr. Cruz, is how did you get started in this? Did you just grow up fishing, or did someone introduce you to it, or how did all this take place?
Well, the tournament scene for me, Dan, I appreciate you having me on. The tournament scene is something that was, completely foreign to me growing up. Nobody that I knew fished any bass tournaments. I grew up out in the rural part of Virginia, a pond in the backyard. And so it really kind of grew from there, started catching fish, bass, and after catching a few of those bass, that's all I wanted to catch anymore. And
yeah, buddy.
So then I joined Bassmaster and got Bassmaster magazine, and that's what really got my interest up to fish the tournaments. And,
right.
And then just along the way, met some people, and they introduced me to other people, and the people you meet along the way in fishing is really a deal. It's
right.
A big part of the fun.
How long have you actually been, I guess, a pro angler? As far as when did you? I guess you probably fished opens to begin with and that kind of thing. How long have you actually been a pro angler?
Right. I went. I graduated from college in the year 2000. A little small liberal arts school in Virginia called Randolph-Macon College. Went there, and about halfway through, when you're in college, you're trying to figure out what to do for the rest of your life. Well, about halfway through my college experience, I started to have some real success fishing weekend tournaments.
Right.
And I met a guy named Dr. Greg South, and he had, finished second in a Bassmaster Classic, fished basically professional for a while before going back to his his radiology practice. But then, so just meeting some of those kind of people, and I thought, this might be something fun, interesting, different. I can use my business degree and get to kind of work for myself, so to speak, and so that's what I did. As soon as I graduated from college, I lived at home for the next few years, and well, basically I lived on the road, but I didn't take on anything else. So, just had to do some hustling on the side, for little guide trips and different stuff like that to hustle up some money. And luckily I was able to win enough money in the tournaments those first few years before I started to kind of move up the ladder as far as the sponsorship stuff goes. And then I fished opens kind of right away. They were actually called the invitationals back then before they were the opens. And so I fished those for 2 years, and then I continued to fish the opens for a few years after that, and made the tour, and then the tour turned into the Elite Series, and I've been on it ever since.
And I guess that brings us to our next topic. And what do you think of this upcoming season? And Evan's going to pick your brain a little bit about some of the lakes and stuff as we go along there.
Sure. Yeah, I tell you, the season that we got coming up is going to be good. It's odd that we're going to be done by the middle of July. This year we had more tournaments after June than we did before, and so this year it's a little more spring weighted, kind of normal. I tell you, my spring track record is a little better than my late summer and fall. So I mean, I'm not too disappointed in the record of what we got going on right now.
Yeah, that's something I've noticed. Just kind of looking at your past finishes and all that stuff. I've noticed in the past, I think it was the past 5 years, you've had 2 top 10s on the St. Johns River, as well as having 2 top 10s on the Sabine Rivers, and those are both early spring tournaments on the schedule. So I was wondering how. If you had to pick 2 or 3 favorites on the schedule, if those would be your where you've had past success on those 2 fisheries, if those would be your 2 favorite picks, or what would be your what you're looking forward to most.
Yeah, those two places are definitely places that I'm looking forward to. And I can tell you though, just from doing this for 20 years, it's a trap when you have success on a body of water once or twice, and then you go back. It's real hard not to try to recreate what you did at those first couple times. So
it's hard to
I have a few little exactly. So I have a few little things that I do personally when I go to a body of water that I've had success on. A lot of times I will purposely fish completely new water that I go to on those places, and so I plan on doing that some more at the St. John's and at the Sabine. Those 2 top 10s I had at the Sabine, they were in completely different areas, completely different. And but the place fish is similar, so that's kind of how I did that. But to be honest with you, some of the other places that I want revenge on are places that I'm probably looking forward to more than the places I've done well on. Fork kind of got me a little bit last year. I made the top 40, but I really I felt like I should have done better, and I kind of lost what was going on with the fish that was that pattern last year, and the year before it got me the last time we went there. So I want to get a little revenge on Lake Fork, man. That's an awesome place, and I have done well. I have had a top 10 there in the past, and I definitely want to get me one there.
Right. It's hard to compete with old Brandon Cobb catching 11 pounders off a bed though at Fork, so I can understand that.
And then the other one I'm really circling is the St. Lawrence River. That place has whipped my butt the last couple times I've been there, and I can tell you right now, it is just like I have to wait till the end of the year to get my revenge on that place. But that's one place I want to definitely post a good event.
And a tournament that kind of stuck out to me when I first seen the schedule was the Tennessee River event in February. I went down to the Classic. They had the expo there in Knoxville. Then and the tournament went out of Knoxville back in March. But this tournament's in February, so back when it was there in March, most of the fish were mostly in a pre-spawn pattern. You might have found a few fish on a bed. It was still fairly early, so I'm kind of wondering how that early Tennessee River tournament's gonna pan out.
Well, fishing in East Tennessee, they fish all winter, and because the fishing can be really good. The smallmouth really get to biting in the early spring, January, February. They have it depends on the water temperature as to what's going to be happening, and that's just kind of how I'm going to gauge it. I mean, if it's in the low 40s, there are going to be a couple different deals. If it's in the mid to upper 40s, there'll be a couple other deals, and then somehow if we have a mild February and it's up there in the low 50s, it'll be a lot different, and it'll be some other stuff going on. And I think that's closer to what was going on when the Classic was there. You saw a lot of shallow cranking, and I think more of that kind of stuff was going on, and I think that would be what's going on. I think the water will still be in the 40s, and that's not going to be. It's going to throw a few guys for a loop, but I mean the fishing can be pretty decent that time of year in East Tennessee and any of those lakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, when you go to the Tennessee River, you can fish both Fort Loudon and Tellico. So do they set up like a Highland Reservoir, like your Cherokee, your Douglas, Norris, things like that, or do they set up a little bit different where they're on a different river chain?
I've never fished either one of those lakes. I have fished probably 7 or 8 different lakes in East Tennessee, but I have not fished those 2 particular ones. I have an idea kind of how the tendencies of Tellico and the tendencies of Fort Loudon. So I'm just gonna go down there and fish them just like an East Tennessee lake. We have a little time before they go off limits. I might if I get my boat set up here before too long, go down there and try to run around and just at least lay my eyes on the place, and so I can have an idea how I want to approach those places.
And talking about your boat setup, I read some of your articles and so forth, and you were talking about your new boat and your electronics and all like that. Are you going with some new electronics this year? Are you upgrading those, I guess you would say?
I'm adding 2 is what I'm doing. From day one, my very first sponsor deal back before I even graduated from college, I had a little deal, and I've been with Lowrance Electronics ever since then, except for a little 3-year period where I was with Ray Marine. They dabbled in the electronics. They make a good product, but then last year I felt a number of times where I felt like I was at a disadvantage because I didn't have a live view that was competitive, and I didn't have a 360 view.
Yeah,
and it really ate at me the further the year went on, and then I said, about halfway through the year, I was talking with Lawrence the whole time, and I said, this is going to be the last year of that. I'm gonna have it all on my boat next year, and so that means I've forgiven or given up, however you want to say it, my Lowrance sponsorship deal, and I actually bought my Lowrances from Lowrance. I bought Humminbirds, and I bought a Garmin Live View for the front. I've actually bought Active Target, the new Lowrance Active Target, which is their new Live View, which on the video looks really good. I actually spent a couple hours on the water with it back in September. I kind of knew what was coming. But again, they still didn't have a 360 view to where I think all 3 of those technologies together, you can just basically pick the best of all 3, and that's what I'm going to run next year. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's what I'm going to go with. And then at the end of the year, I'll evaluate what I want to do going forward after that.
Jacob Wheeler, he everybody kind of seen that video he put out this past year where he was running all 3 units. I kind of think, when I first seen the video, I kind of thought the first thing was that he set a precedent for everybody because
Mark Rose did it as well. He did. Yeah. Mark Rose did it at the same time Jacob did for the same reason, and those 2 guys really set the precedent for it on tour. Mark Rose is one of the best offshore fishermen. Jacob Wheeler is definitely giving him a run for his money as far as that's concerned. And I think those 2 guys are probably the best at using their electronics, two of the best at using their electronics. And they both had Lowrance deals and gave them up to run all 3. So that I'm going to do that for this coming year. Is same kind of deal. I know that there are quite a few anglers that are going to be running multiple electronic brands this coming year on the Elite Series. But I did watch a lot of Jacob's videos, and he didn't, in my opinion, he didn't give away the goods too much on how to really dial them things in. So I'm gonna have to get that out there once I figure it all out.
So, now that kind of that Lowrance came out with their forward facing, their live sonar. Humminbird has the 360, but do you think that Humminbird this year, at ICAST or the Classic Expo, do you think that Humminbird will come out with, something besides the 360?
Yeah, they have announced it. It's they're going to come out with, they call it I think it's Mega Live or something like that, and it's supposed to be extremely detailed. I haven't seen a ton of information on it that's been released yet. I do know that they're projecting a release date of April, which means May at the earliest. Just from the electronics, that's what that means. That means it's going to be May at the earliest, which means, half of our season is going to be over. Half of our season is going to be over by then, and so that was one reason I thought that going all Humminbird didn't make any sense. But there's still advantages, in my opinion, for the Lowrance product, even though this year they did not have a compatible live and a compatible 360 view. They have the ability to do it if they'll put it all together. But that active target that they got is very, very clear, and I think that the more it gets dialed in, they upgrade the software a little bit, and they'll get all the engineering tweaked on the back end. That's going to be absolutely any whatever an angler would need for a live view, in my opinion, at this point. But the cone angle is a little narrower than the Garmin, so you're not seeing quite as wide of a view. But if you see something on there, that's exactly what it is, where it is. So it's a pretty tight shot.
Is that one of the bigger changes? You said you've been a pro for several years now. Is that like one of probably the biggest change in the competitive fishing world? Is just the advancement in the electronics. I know a lot of the lures and rods and reels and lines are getting more technique specific, but it just seems like the electronics. It almost seems like it's an arms race anymore to see who can come out with the latest.
Well, I think it's really a three-phase deal as far as the electronics go to what had the biggest impact on fishing. Number one that happened, and it happened first, was the topographic maps, the detailed topographic maps being on your GPS.
Right.
That was the first thing that happened, and I don't know, that was at least 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
When I started, man, it looked like an Atari set that you were looking at for a map on your electronics, and that was it. But within a few years, they figured out how to do that. In my opinion, that made a bigger impact on how guys fish, and it. I felt like I was really good at finding offshore stuff without the topo before that, and then so it made it to where anybody could just plug a chip in and then go find little current breaks and little subtle points and all that kind of stuff that I had kind of, figured out how to do. Right. But then the second phase was a big one, and that was the side imaging.
Right.
Humminbird was the first one to come out with the side imaging. They came out with that. That changed the game because, man, you could just make a couple of swipes over an area and you could really see what was down there. There was no more guessing and figuring that out. So that made a big impact. But then this live view on the front of the boat now, this live view that guys are having to be able to actually see the fish, it is changing the game. I'd say it's neck and neck with that first topo maps on your GPS. It's really close, those two. Still say that when they came out with those topos, man, that all of a sudden everything offshore got found.
Yeah,
quick.
it's amazing. Even at a rather small lake like we're on here at Cave Run, which is 8,200 acres. They've been here the last 2 years. I guess it's Navionics or whoever, and they bring a couple of boats and they spend about a week and they just zip around everywhere and up all the rivers, the creeks and flats and everywhere, and they map every inch of it, and gosh, you can just get a chip and put it in, and you're good to go. You could, because there's places here that 20 years ago, unless you were a local that really knew where you were going, in stump fields and things like that, you just didn't venture. And now, gosh, you got guys that have maybe been here once or twice, and they can run these channels just like someone's been here their whole life. And yeah, it's changed. That's changed it here. The mapping, especially.
I can definitely agree with John there. Just, in me and my young career, just learning, the electronics and everything like that, having access to, Humminbird, Lakemaster, Navionics, all that stuff, where, as much as I've traveled, I've been up to upper Mississippi River, I've been down, Dale Hollow, Kentucky Lake, fishing, all that stuff. The Lakemaster and the Navionics chips in my units has helped me more than anything that I've fished with.
Yep, that's I still think that's what I'm saying. I still think that gives you that's been a bigger impact on helping people find fish quicker than anything that's come out.
Okay. Well, back to you and your brand there. When did the Missile Bait brand come about?
This coming January, it's going to be 9 years that we've been in business, and I started the planning phase of that about a year before that.
Right.
So that makes us about January of whatever it was 9 years ago. It's just that's when we started.
Right.
And I know that you're just working with a bunch of different companies in the fishing industry. I started out designing crankbaits with Spro, probably close to 15 years ago now, and that kind of was a segue to be able to start Missile Baits, because I understood the design prototype process, and it was just everything else that I had to figure out as far as the business side of it goes. I thought I knew something about the fishing industry business-wise until I started a company, and then I realized I didn't know as much as I thought I did.
What was your first product as far as missile goes? Was it the D-bomb, or is there something else? Because the D-bomb is our good seller here, and I was just curious if that was like your main one, or if there was something before that.
We started with 5 products when we launched the company. I didn't want to start with one. I wanted to have enough product line to have some shelf space. And the D-bomb was our home run from that first set. But we had the D-bomb, the Tomahawk, the Twin Turbo, the Drop Crawl, and the Missile Crawl. Those were the 5 baits we started with. Right. And by far and away, the D-bomb has been the number one out of those first 5. Yeah. But the other amazing thing. Yeah, go ahead.
I can definitely speak for that. I've got 2-gallon bags full of D-bombs in my boat right now. So I can't thank you enough for that one.
They're excellent. They're an excellent seller for us here. I'm proud of the way that they the way they turn over the inventory. The D-bombs and stuff just don't stay on our shelf very long here.
Well, that's good. That's good. We like shipping them to you, I promise.
But I noticed that you guys offer the jigs and such. When did the Iaconelli jigs come in? When did you incorporate that into your brand?
It was not long after we started Missile that we worked out an agreement with Mike Iaconelli to do the Missile jigs. I think it was about 2 years into going into business. I think somewhere along that lines we started a jig. We designed that mini flip. It was he actually won that Elite Series event on the Delaware River with one of the early prototypes. We were working on 2 different jigs to start with, and then when he won that tournament, he told me, he said, I guess we're going to start with the mini flip, huh? I said, yep, looks like it.
Looks like it. Good deal.
So good deal. We started there, and then we got got a number of we got some other jig projects in the works right now. Looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, Evan, what else do you want to pick his brain about here, as far as maybe techniques or tips and that kind of thing?
This really isn't a fit. Well, it kind of is, but not really a tip or technique based question. But I'm 17 years old. I'm going to be starting. I'm going to get my feet wet this year, and I'm going to start fishing BFLs from the front of the boat. So I know that you started at a young age, and I figured there's no one else to get better advice from somebody who's went through the ringer and done the whole process. So if you could give like one or two pieces of advice to, I mean, it doesn't even matter, if you're a 17-year-old kid or if you're a 40-year-old guy, when you first start fishing out of the front of the boat at that, I guess you could call it amateur professional level. What's some of the best advice that you can give for going to that level?
I think that the way you're doing it, it sounds like you're on the right path to doing it correctly. I'm a big advocate, and this is exactly what I did. I think when you're fishing, when you move to the front of the boat, you need to make sure you continue to fish some tournaments out of the back of the boat, and if you have somebody that's more experienced than you are to be able to fish some team tournaments with, I think that mix is key in continuing to learn, because you'll go from one tournament where you're making all the decisions, you go to the other tournament and you're making half the decisions, and then you go to the other tournament and all you got to do is focus on trying to catch fish.
Yeah.
And you'll see boaters make right decisions, you'll see them make wrong decisions, and then if you fish with enough of them, which is what I did, you run across some of them that they're just different. And you're like, I can tell why this dude has had a lot of success. Like he approaches everything different than the last four dudes I've been with. Like this is the guy, like that's the guy you sit there and watch everything he's doing. And if he's talkative, just let him, try to pick his brain as well. I mean, because there's a lot of tremendous regional fishermen that have a lot of good experience and advice that they can give you that you can, put into your memory bank and then pull out later when you're out there on the road doing different stuff. So I just think that's key to be able to kind of keep learning from all different levels until you break through and want to go full time on the boater side.
And this year, I'll be fishing. I'm in my last year of high school fishing. Me and my dad, he's fished for Lord 40 years. Him and Dan grew up together. And, I'm getting fishing team tournaments with him. I'm fishing team tournaments with my high school partner. And then, I'm going to be making that jump into college fishing. So, yeah. But I think it took a lot of decision making to decide I want to make that jump to the front of the boat. But, I'm thinking that'll be the right decision for me to grow as an angler this year.
It is. I mean, but you can also go up the ladder to, honestly, I can't keep up with what the heck FLW is doing, even if they have co-anglers anymore.
I heard
that. I don't know what's going on over there, but Bassmaster has that Marshall program. I think that if they had that when I was coming up, I would have been all over that like a cat on a June bug, just getting in the boat and soaking up and learning. They didn't have that when I was coming up, but they did have the FLW with co-anglers. So with those co-anglers, I fished a full co-angler for at least a year on the FLW side, made some great acquaintances, made some good friends, had a lot of fun, and some of the stuff that I learned in there was really good. You get a gauge to see what's going on. Like I got to bedfish with Timmy Horton. Timmy Horton was a really good bed fisherman, and I realized after fishing with him, I think I'm on this guy's level with bed fishing.
Sure.
Just some of the talk that we had together and some of the experiences we went through that day. And he and we were friends before that day. We've been friends ever since. And that part is cool as well. Because a number of times I just throw my bait out in the middle of the lake and hope something bit it. I wasn't even, throwing anywhere near where he was throwing. But we talked about what he was looking at, what he was seeing, and we were reading the fish together, and I helped him catch a couple of them, just from stuff that I was observing. And it was interesting. A lot of fun. Fished with Larry Nixon. Fished with a number of other
amazing
guys. Just neat stuff that you really can't get that experience any other place other than doing a co-angler at the top level or a marshal program.
Yeah, and now you're at that professional level, and you're in competition with a lot of those guys that say you watched fishing years ago or were in the back of the boat or whatever. And I guess a big thing for me, just being the amateur fisherman I am, what's it like whenever you're in that tournament, especially when you were in it started years ago, and like, you qualified for your first classic, and that would just be nerve wracking. But I guess if you're a pro and you've fished against all these guys, but still, I'm just kind of wanting to get your impression on, what was it like fishing that first classic, and is it still and I'm assuming it's still as exciting as it was, it is now as it was your first when you fished.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny because when I qualified for my first classic, it was through the Bassmaster Tour. It was the year before they converted to the Elite Series. And that first, when I qualified and I made it, I remember I called him, I called my dad. I said, "Hey, Dad, I made it. I caught enough weight. Doesn't matter what I do tomorrow. I'm in. I'm in the classic." And he's like, "Oh, he was through the moon and all that."
Oh, sure, yeah.
And he said, "Do you feel like a giant weight's been lifted off your back?" And I said, "Yes and no."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Well, why? What do you mean no?" I said, "Well, now that I know that I can do it, now I'm expecting myself to do it every year."
Yeah.
And he started laughing. And he's like, "Man, that's pretty interesting." I was like, "No, I appreciate the fact that I just made it, and believe me, there is a sense of relief. But it's like a new weight just got put on me because now I feel like I should be able to do that every year, and that's my expectations is classic every year, and I feel the same way. I mean, last year I totally stunk it up in about 5 of the events, and it tanked my whole season.
Yeah,
and that's disappointing for me. That's not my track record over the years, and that's not what I expect myself to do this coming year either.
Right.
Kind of talking about your track record. I'm going to kind of switch gears here and ask more of a tactics or a techniques question. I was just kind of looking through and browsing through your top 20 finishes, your top 10 finishes, and I've noticed that I won't say most of them, but a good amount of them have been on southern largemouth dominated lakes like Rayburn, Dardanelle, St. Johns River, Sabine River, things like that. So I was just wondering if you're geared more to that shallow largemouth fishing, or if you're more of a northern smallmouth guy. That's kind of my question.
Definitely more of the largemouth. Is where I've had the best success. I love fishing for the smallmouth, but the smallmouth are tricky, man, because there's a big difference between catching 3-pounders and catching 3 3/4 pounders.
Yeah,
on a lot of places, or 3.5s versus 4 1/4s. If you go to, a lot of places that we go to, they're subtle different. Like everybody's going to go catch 3-pounders. When you go to the St. Lawrence River, basically everybody does. But then there's some guys that just have a knack for figuring out how to catch those ones that are 4 to 4.5 versus 3.5 to 3 3/4. You put those two fish side by side, they don't look that much different, but there really, really is. And some of those guys just have a real knack for doing it and understanding it. I feel like I learn every year, and then I go out there and then I'll learn a new lesson because I sucked up one of the days, and then I'm like, God dang it. I feel like one of these days when I go up north, all the stars are going to line up for me, and I'm going to just crush them, and I'm going to feel like a king.
Oh yeah. And there again, you're talking about the ups and downs of it. For me, I'm more curious about just the pressure that's involved. Like say, if you're going in and you've made the cut for the final day and you're in one of the top 3 or 4 positions, and unless it's just a tremendous amount of weight, anyone in that top 10's got a shot. But like if you're in that top 3 or 4, you've got a real shot at winning that day. Do you feel that, or if you just fish so much, you know in your mind what you're going to do, and you just go out there and do it?
It really kind of depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I always tell people, like, you can't win it if you don't make it to the last day.
Sure.
And I'm a big believer in that. Like, you can't win any tournament unless you make it to the end. So if you try to blow your wad on the first day and you miss, I mean, you don't even give yourself a chance to win. And I think that's where some people make mistakes on trying to, quote unquote, win tournaments.
Right.
And so I try to make it to the last day. Once I get to the last day, that's kind of where I evaluate, all right, what's going on? Do I have enough? How close am I to the lead? Am I in the lead, or how many pounds back am I? How far can I go up, reasonably? And but when I look at that top 10, and I go, okay, I'm in 4th, but poundage wise, statistically, the top 6 have a chance to win. I'm in.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, like, what am I going to be doing on the water? Do I feel like I still have plenty of fish that I can keep doing what I've been doing? Do I feel like I'm running out and I need to change? Or is the pattern changing? I feel like that when it happens the day of day 3 and day 4, if things are changing and you're staying on top of what the fish are doing, those are the tournaments that you can win. Is when you start to really dial it in days 3 and 4, and your bags get bigger and bigger.
Right.
Like not last year. I mean, last year I almost won the St. John's, and I didn't realize how close I was to winning it, because I thought I was just outside of the fringe of having a chance to win it. As the day started out. But I wouldn't have fished any different. I think I did well to do what I did this past year. But the year before, I was really starting to dial it in on that last day, and then I went out and caught 30 pounds. And if I was I was in 10th place, if I didn't slip a little bit on I think it was day 2 or day 3. I think it was day 2. I slipped a little bit as far as weight goes.
Right.
That was the day I wish I could have had back and done a few things different. That's when I lost the tournament.
Is there I guess one question for me is, like, when you first started out, was there a specific technique that kind of elevated your career, that you've kind of kept the whole, throughout your career? Or have you, I guess it's like everything else, has your fishing evolved since your career started?
My fishing's definitely evolved. I'd say early on, I would seek and find any type of stained water and throw a shallow crankbait. Okay. And that was, I felt like that was the best chance I had at catching limits, catching big fish, and early on, it really worked. I mean, I felt like over time, it was hard to make a living beating the bank, being a bank beater.
Yeah, sure.
And you get your butt handed to you by these guys fishing offshore. But as I was fishing the shallow cranking, I also like to deep crank at the same time. And those two patterns go, because if one's not going on, the other one probably is.
Right.
So that all those warm water tournaments, that's what I try to live and die with early on. I feel like I've gotten away from that a little bit. Just so many new techniques, and you got Tokyo rigs and Ned rigs, and all this other jazz going on, and I feel like sometimes I got away from the techniques that I do best.
Right.
So I feel like I probably did that a little bit last year. In 2020.
Right.
I'm going to make sure I don't do that in 21 as much. Sight fishing is another deal. If if there's fish on beds, I feel like I should be in the top 20 every event with no questions asked. The last real bed fishing tournament we had was Lake Hartwell, not in 2019, and I think I finished in the 20s somewhere. So I mean, I had a decent event, right? Doing what I feel like I'm pretty good at.
Right.
So now, do you think that new baits, like a specific example, like a chatterbait that's been around for however long, 10 years or something, it's really taken the industry by storm. Do you think it's almost replacing a spinnerbait? Because there's tournaments like specifically around here in 2017 or 2018 when the FLW tour was on Cumberland, and you've seen guys like Andy Morgan and Alan Boyd up there throwing a spinnerbait. I remember Travis Moran specifically said that the chatterbait took this week off, and the old school spinnerbait came back. So, do you think that new tactics like that are kind of overshadowing older tactics, or do you think it's just kind of a healthy mix of both?
Well, I think what happens is that an angler you can only throw one bait at a time.
Yeah.
So when we get more and more options to throw, and this is exactly what has happened with me. When you have more and more options to throw, your spinnerbait, you must have used to throw it 20% of the time. Well, now you got a chatterbait, and you got all these other some of these other baits, and now you only throw it 8% of the time. You might throw it less than half of what you used to, just because there's more baits to throw. And I mean, a chatterbait has come on the scene, and it's a force to be reckoned with because it's good all the time. I mean, it's good damn near year round.
Yeah.
And you can kind of adapt it so it's clear water and dirty water. It kind of has transcended the spinnerbait only being a dirty water deal for the most part.
Yeah.
To whereas now a chatterbait, can be a very good clear water bait from my experience. That's one of those things I feel like where it's just you just have more options, and guys just don't have as much time to throw everything under the sun. Is the way I look at it.
Yeah, I can kind of go along with that from a retail standpoint, like where we're at here. Zoom is kindly it's a big deal around here. And just off the top of my head, there's right at 4,000 SKUs of Zoom.
Right.
If I had everything Zoom had, I don't think I'd have enough room in my store to hang it. And everything is drifting toward this technique specific use, even down to fishing lines are coming out that are, top water specific or crankbait specific, rods and reel setup, everything is getting so technique specific, and there's just so many, like you say, there's just so many choices out there. And you watch guys like you when they fish that final day, and they'll have the awfulest assortment of rods and reels on that front deck. And some of those guys, I don't even know how they can even think to fish all of them, because some of them look like they have at least 8 rods on each side of the deck. And I just don't know how you could even work all that out in your mind, that you've got all that different techniques going on at the same time.
You just described Brian Thrift just toe to toe.
Thrift and Ike and Ellie, I mean, they're both junk fishermen through and through. I feel like I'm definitely in that junk fisherman category. Swindle's a junk fisherman, and basically what that is, and the best way to explain it, and when if I explain it, then it makes more sense why there's 10 rods on the deck at all times, is that you're just going to fish whatever's in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're rolling down the bank, and there's a single stob. Well, you might want to throw, a mini flip jig by it because you like bulk your baits on, thinner cover. So you throw that, and then you go down a little bit further, and then there's a thick laydown. So like, well, I want to throw a D-bomb in that, so then I'll pick the D-bomb up, throw that down there, and then you go a little further, and it looks like there's some scattered grass under the surface, so you're gonna pick up a buzz bait and throw it over top of that. Then you go down a little further, and the grass peters out. So you're like, well, there's some bait in the area. I'm gonna pick up this chatterbait and fish it down through here and see what happens. And I mean, that's a lot of how I fish,
right?
Just in general. And Thrift's kind of the same way. The Thrift is he's much more of a deep water guy on the way he does that. But he'll come up to a spot. He has all those rods on his deck because he wants to figure out what they're biting that day. Mm-hmm. So he might pull up to a spot and make 2 casts with one, 2 casts with another, 2 casts with another, 2 casts with another, and then he's on. He might do that for a few spots, and then we've talked about it, and then he'll adjust. He's like, man, well, maybe they want something with a little slower fall, or want a little bit bigger swim bait, or want a little smaller swim bait. So then he'll adjust, and then he'll fish the next couple places with these 3 or 4. And he's, so he's not going to take his foot off the gas from jumping around and trying to find active fish, because his philosophy is if you can find active fish, ones that are ready to feed, you could throw any of the baits on his deck probably and catch them. So that's why he likes to keep jumping around and not sit on one spot and throw his whole tackle box at him to try to figure out how to get him to bite. So that's just kind of his philosophy, but it's junk fishing, but just a little different, a little refined.
All right. Well, Mr. Cruz, we don't want to tie up all your time. We know you're traveling with your family. So, Evan, have you got anything else you want to ask him here before we close this out?
I think that about covered all of it. I just want to say we really appreciate you being on here, John Cruz. I've looked up to you for years. And this was a great experience just to be able to talk to an Elite Series pro and kind of pick his brain and all that stuff and learn. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Evan. I'm sure I'll be seeing you coming up through the ranks here before too long. Sounds like you got a good head on your shoulders, doing things the right way, and you're pretty focused about the whole deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing you, and I appreciate you having me on, Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been a big honor for me. I watch all you guys on TV and on the YouTube and everything as far as the tournaments and such. And it's been a big deal for me, and I really appreciate you taking the time from everything to sit down and talk with us a minute. And hopefully, if your schedule permits, maybe later on this season, maybe we can do this again sometime.
That sounds good. Yeah, just keep in touch. Look forward to it, and look forward to talking with you guys again.
All right. Well, Mr. Cruz, good luck to you in this upcoming season, and hopefully we'll see you get to cash a few checks and collect a couple of trophies this season.
That sounds good to me. I'm all about that plan.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Cruz.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you.